They laughed, not because you failed, but because they needed you to fail. Your fall made them feel taller. Your struggle became their entertainment. They pointed, whispered, mocked, not always loudly, but just enough that you heard it, just enough to make sure it echoed in your silence. At first, you felt it all, the shame, the anger, the confusion. You asked questions they never had the courage to ask themselves. You wondered why effort wasn't enough, why being genuine didn't protect you, why trying made you the target. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that you weren't built for applause. You were built for aftermath, for what comes after the fall. The version of you that stood back up wasn't the one they laughed at. That version died the moment they dismissed you. Now you move without announcement. You build in places they don't see. While they talk, you study. While they sleep, you sharpen. Every joke they made became a brick, every smirk a spark. And now the foundation is set, the fire is lit. They thought the pain would paralyze you, but you've learned how to use it, how to wear it like armor. And when you show back up, it won't be for applause. It'll be for closure, silent, unapologetic, precise. They laughed when you failed, but they won't laugh again. Failure didn't break you, it introduced you. It peeled away the noise, the illusions, the fake support that only clapped when you won. When things fell apart, the masks around you did too. You saw who they really were, not just in how they mocked, but in how they stayed silent. Silence isn't always empathy. Sometimes it's approval in disguise, but that was the moment you shifted. Not in rage, not in vengeance, in stillness. Because there's something sacred about knowing the truth, about realizing who's in your corner and who just wants to stand on your stage. You stopped trying to be understood. You stopped explaining your dreams to people who secretly hoped you'd abandon them. Instead, you turned inward, quietly, brutally. You cut off everything that drained you. You stopped seeking motivation from the surface. You found it in the dirt, buried under failure, rejection, and ridicule. And while they laughed, you listened, not to them, to the voice inside, the one that kept whispering, not yet, but soon. They don't realize what they triggered. They thought they were ending something, but they were building you. Every failure lit the forge, every mockery shaped the blade. And now, you're not chasing redemption, you're becoming the reason they'll never laugh that way again. Because this time you won't come back louder, you'll come back undeniable. They didn't notice when it shifted, because change like yours doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in silence. In moments they weren't watching. While they laughed, you trained. While they gossiped, you planned. You didn't need to respond. The future would speak for you. They thought time would erase you, but time worked for you. Every day was a blueprint. Every insult was a nail. You weren't just surviving, you were building. Patiently, ruthlessly, and now you're no longer trying to prove them wrong. You're just proving yourself right, quietly, consistently. They still talk, still try to define who you were, but they can't reach who you are now, because the person they laughed at is gone. That version shattered in the fire they set. The one who stands now doesn't flinch, doesn't explain, doesn't need the room. They sense it in how you carry yourself, in how you don't react like you used to. They search for the cracks, but they only find reflection. The same judgment they threw your way, now staring back at them in your silence. And deep down, they know what's coming, they just don't know when. But you do, because you've been preparing for that moment, not to speak, not to scream, but to return with a presence so undeniable it silences everything they ever said. The most powerful revenge isn't loud, it's not wrapped in fire or fury, it's silent, it's surgical. It's the moment they realize without warning that you were never broken, just underestimated. Now they glance over their shoulders, not out of guilt, but out of confusion. You're still here, but something's different. You don't explain, you don't engage, you don't even acknowledge their presence. And that silence, it echoes louder than any apology ever could. You're not here to prove you were right. You're here to remind them they were wrong, not through words, but through evolution. The version of you they laughed at, the one who hesitated, who second-guessed, who craved their approval, is gone, buried beneath discipline, forged through doubt. They keep watching, trying to figure out what changed. But change doesn't announce itself, it just arrives, and you've arrived, not as a louder version of who you were, but as a colder, clearer, more calculated force, one that no longer reacts to noise, one that only moves when it matters. Now they remember the things they said, the smirks, the whispers, the silence when you needed support, and every memory cuts deeper. Not because you throw it at them, but because you carry it without a word. Because the quietest revenge isn't screaming, "Look at me now." It's standing tall, while they lower their eyes first. They won't say it out loud, but they feel it. The shift in the air when you walk into the room, the way people look at you now, the quiet confidence in your posture, the discipline in your gaze. You're no longer trying to be accepted. You're the one doing the choosing now, and that's what unsettles them the most. Because they can't recognize you, not truly. They keep looking for the version they remember, the one that stumbled, doubted, begged for a chance. But that version no longer exists. You buried it beneath every night you worked in silence. Every morning you showed up with no praise. Every day you refused to quit. You've become everything they never expected. Not because you shouted, but because you outlasted, outgrew, outmaneuvered, and now they find themselves adjusting, lowering their tone, watching their words, shrinking in the presence of the person they once laughed at. They try to reconnect now, smile differently, pretend they always believed in you. But you remember, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You know who disappeared, who mocked, who doubted, and that memory, that's your edge. You don't carry it like anger, you carry it like armor. It keeps you sharp, focused, cold, because when you rise in silence, you don't owe anyone an explanation, only a view they'll never forget. If you felt that silence sharpen you too, subscribe and let them hear nothing but your rise. They thought you'd come back angry, that you'd scream, prove something, chase the applause they once denied you, but what you brought instead was worse for them. You brought calm, that terrifying, unshakable calm that only comes from someone who's already been through the fire and chose to walk back in just to own it. Now every step you take carries weight, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you're not. That's what unnerves them. You no longer need their validation, their recognition, their acceptance. You never did. You just thought you did. That illusion is broken now, and with it, their comfort. You walk into spaces differently. You speak differently, not louder, but clearer. You don't demand respect. You command it simply by being. There's no anger left in you, only clarity, and clarity terrifies those who hide behind noise. They watch the way people react to you now, the way your presence shifts the atmosphere, the way your silence is no longer mistaken for weakness, but understood as control. That's the part they can't fake. They can't replicate what you've built, because it wasn't built for attention. It was built in solitude, in the dark, alone. They see that now, and though they won't say it out loud, they feel it with every glance. You're not who you were when they laughed. You're who they never wanted you to become. Now they move differently around you. They hesitate, rehearse their words before speaking. They glance at you, then away, unsure if they still hold a place in your world. And the truth is, they don't. Not because you're bitter, but because you've outgrown the space they mocked you in. You're no longer angry. You're simply unavailable, no longer seeking inclusion, no longer open to shallow apologies or performative praise. You've stopped translating your silence for those who only listened when you shouted. They don't laugh now, not because you silenced them, but because they finally heard themselves. Heard what it meant when they laughed at your fall, when they dismissed your effort, when they buried you with words and thought you'd stay down, but you didn't. You didn't scream, you didn't beg, you didn't explain, you evolved. And now every achievement echoes back to them, not as revenge, but as reflection, because your rise wasn't built to hurt them, it was built to heal you. But healing has a sound too, and sometimes it sounds like doors closing, quietly, permanently. You don't need their regret, you don't need their recognition. You've learned to live without their noise. And that's exactly what makes your silence feel like thunder. Now they study you. The posture, the precision, the way you walk into a room without trying to be noticed, yet somehow become the center of it. The version of you they tried to destroy has become the one they now wish they could imitate. But it's too late, because what they see on the surface isn't the story, it's the result. They weren't there for the nights when silence was your only friend. They didn't witness the mornings you showed up broken, but still moved forward. They mocked the fall, but they missed the rise. And now they want the outcome without the origin. But that's the difference between you and them. You earned your calm, you built your stillness in chaos. Your confidence wasn't given. It was carved out of rejection, disrespect, and every failed moment they celebrated. They wear confidence like decoration, you wear it like armor. And now, in every room, there's a shift. Not because you ask for attention, but because energy answers to discipline. Because power doesn't need an entrance. It becomes the atmosphere, and you've become that atmosphere. The moment you walk in, the temperature drops, eyes search you, conversations pause. You are not the same, and that truth is loud, even if you never speak. They thought your comeback would be loud, explosive, public, but what they got instead was worse. You didn't come back for them. You didn't come back to prove anything. You just came back better, colder, sharper. And they weren't ready for that. Now they carry the weight of what they did. Not because you remind them, but because you don't. You never brought it up. You never threw it in their face. And that silence, that's what haunts them the most. because it says you don't need their guilt. You don't need their apology. You don't even need them to know they were wrong. You already moved on. And yet, here they are, trapped in the echo of what they did, replaying every moment they thought you wouldn't recover, while you build, while you rise, while you outgrow every narrative they tried to write for you. Now they watch from the sidelines of a story they thought ended in your defeat. And every chapter you write in silence, every win, every step, every breath, they feel it. Not because you flaunt it, but because they never imagined you'd walk this far without ever looking back. And that's the part they never saw coming, that one day they'd be the ones stuck in the past. And you'd be too far ahead to hear them laugh again. You never asked them to believe in you. You just wanted them to stay out of the way, but they couldn't. They needed to feel taller, so they stood on your doubt. They needed a joke, so they chose your effort. And when you fell, they made it a spectacle. But now you've outlived every laugh, outpaced every insult, outgrown every limitation they projected onto you, not with noise, not with bitterness, but with direction, with focus, with a kind of silence that doesn't scream revenge. It becomes it. You don't need recognition. You don't need them to say they were wrong. The results already did. The growth already did. The difference between who you were and who you are now already did. Because real victory doesn't come with cheers. It comes with peace, with knowing you didn't become better out of spite, but out of purpose, that you didn't rise to be seen. You rose because you refused to stay down, and now they look at you differently, not with hate, not with love, with fear. The kind of fear that comes from realizing they fed the very storm that now stands above them. So no, there won't be laughter this time, just silence, and the echo of everything they lost when they chose to laugh instead of listen.